What's up, Foundation Nation? Today we're doing a review of a disc that is probably the most popular, one of the most popular discs in general right now, and easily the most popular approach disc on the market, and that is a Discraft Zone. We have a few different to throw today. Got one that, this is a Ledgestone stamped one, but it's just a Z Zone. We've got a beat in CT Zone here. It's gonna be really cool to see how these things fly when they're beat in. And then we have a couple ESP zones that are probably pretty similar to the Z, nice and overstable. The Zone is so popular because it was one of the first discs of its kind, really not a super fast disc. It's more of a putter slash mid-range, kind of in between there, you know, that 4 slot, 3 to 4 speed. These discs are used a lot of times for just overstable chip approaches. Some guys with arm speed can throw them really far for almost like a shot that I would throw a mid-range for, but they're very reliable discs, and as they beat in, they keep that reliability, but they'll push a little bit further and they glide a little bit more. It's a really cool disc to see as it wears on, but they're very reliable, excellent forehand disc. So we're gonna throw a bunch of different lines. I'm gonna start by giving them a backhand. I'm gonna give them kind of, just rip them flat to maybe even a little bit of ante, and you're just gonna see the overstability of this disc to just give you an idea. We're gonna go with the Z1 to start. This should be nice and overstable. A little bit of headwind, not a ton, but just keep that in mind. Yeah, as you can see, there's headwind there. I'm ripping it out low and hard, and maybe even with a tad bit of anhyzer, and that thing is never budging, staying on line and fading at the end. That's the overstability and reliability of a Zone that you can count on. Now, this one here, this is a CT Zone. This one's been worn in a little bit. This is not necessarily a shot you would throw with a more beat-in Zone. These are typically more useful for forehand approaches or maybe like a pushing hyzer, but I'll throw this on a similar line just to see how when this disc wears in, it still will probably want to fade back at the end, but it might not handle the wind quite the same way. Yeah, so as I expected, that one I ripped over on a little bit, but you could see kind of the flight I wanted you to see, where it did turn a little bit, hitting that headwind. Doesn't quite have the overstability to just stay on line like the first one did, but at the end, the disc still wants to come back at the end. Zones take virtually forever to lose that little bit of fade at the end. You can pretty much own them as long as you want, and it'll still have that, I mean, until you literally can run it over the car. But that one's been seasoned a ton. You can see it still has reliability. You'll see on some other angles that it's plenty useful. I'm gonna throw one more with this ESP Zone on that similar line just to give you another view. Yep, just like the Z Zone, into a headwind, flat, hard, no problem, plenty reliable, nice easy fade.
The approach disc that all other approach discs want to be in my hand here, the Z Zone. This is actually a Ledgestone stamped, but just a Z Zone. We'll go backhand, definitely a headwind out here. Expecting a very consistently overstable flight. We have a few different stages of wear, but as you'll probably see, I haven't thrown all of these, as you'll probably see, it takes a lot to really knock the edge off of a Zone, so. All right, we'll see if we can't do the ESP Zone on a similar line. Okay, now this ESP is the first one that has some seasoning to it. Both of those are basically brand new, just two different plastics. Fly very similar, just the feel's different. This one's definitely been seasoned a little bit. Not a ton, so I'm expecting basically the exact same flight, but this could be one, you know, like I said, it just takes a long time to beat in the Zone. So we'll see. Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of what you want. That's kind of what you want out of a Zone. You want something you can put in your bag, have in your bag for a long time. It's not going to change the flight. This final one's a 2020, so 2 years old. I don't know how long the person threw it because we pulled it out of our use section. CT edition Zone, so baseline. Hopefully it beat it in. I mean, they definitely beat it in more than the other two. So we'll see if we can get you a little bit of a beat-in Zone flight out of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That disc might just end up in one of our bags. So that's what a beat-up Zone does. You can get like a really beat-up Zone. I don't know if you've watched some of Brody's videos, that Jawbreaker Zone. You can get them to fully flip up. But that right there was in CT plastic, but if you have a Z one for years, that's what you'll eventually get your Zone 2. It's something that it will hold straight, push long, but you can still trust to come out and fight. Put it on hyzer, it'll flip up a little bit, but you don't have to worry about it getting squirrely. And that's what the Zone's great for. We'll obviously throw some forehands and stuff with them, but overstable approach, there's a reason the Zone's the most popular one on the market. Now for the Zone, we're gonna throw some forehands here. I'm really just going to throw these two. The two ESP ones I think fly very similar to the Z. So I'll throw the more beat up one and then the Z one. I would say this is probably the most used Zone shot in the world. Like I feel like most people that have a Zone, most used shot is forehand approaches. So I'm not gonna hit it super hard. You can wail on these things. I mean, Brody I think throws them like 320 and in. He's throwing maybe even farther. Forehand Zone. I'm not doing that. So I'm gonna just kind of throw them how I would personally throw a Zone. I'll just kind of throw it flat, a little hyzer, and just kind of show you the difference between a beat-in one and a new one. Or a lot of hyzer. But yeah, I mean that's the consistent approach with a Zone. Just throw it on hyzer, you put it out wide, you know it's gonna swing in, you trust it every time. We'll try to throw this one on about the same amount of hyzer, show you a little beat up on what it does. Yeah, so I mean, if I'm looking at that in the field, I probably didn't release one the exact same angle and line, but just looks-wise where I'm at, you won't be able to see it on camera, but the Z one is probably about 30 to 40 feet right and 30 to 40 feet shorter. So essentially what the beat up Zone is giving you is a similar flight that's gonna have a little bit more glide because it's beat up and not as hard of a finish. So it's gonna kind of stay on that line, stay true straight, go a little bit farther for you as it beats in, but still have that finish at the end, just not quite as far right. So I think that's why too, you see some people have multiple Zones in their bag. That's the different flights they're looking for there. One that'll like flip up and push, but still finish. And the other one's just gonna start finishing early and get hard right or left if you're throwing backhand.
All right, that's gonna do it for the review of the Discraft Zone. As you can see, this disc is incredibly popular for a reason. It's just an incredibly reliable disc. It's a disc that just accomplishes exactly what it's supposed to do. Just something a little bit quicker than a putter in that slot between mid-range and putter that has a nice reliable finish. I think it's the best forehand approach disc probably ever made realistically. You know, it just kind of perfected what a lot of companies try to make in that approach disc. And a lot of other companies have made good discs, but the Zone, you know, you hear it in videos. This is a disc that we compare other discs to. We'll say, oh, it's a little bit like this kind of Zone, or it's a little more stable or a little flippier than a Zone. Like, and if you see a disc like that in our vocabulary, you know it's for a reason. It's because this was really the one that cemented itself in that role in the game of disc golf. I think this Zone applies to everybody because from beginner to advanced, you know, to pro, you're gonna see this disc be just as overstable really. It's gonna always be reliable. Obviously the guys throwing 500 feet can get them to go a little further and straighter, but it's still gonna fade consistently for them, just like it's gonna fade consistently for a brand new player. It's gonna go left. They wear in nicely. They have a really cool beat-in period that takes a long time to wear them in, but as they do, as you can see, that CT one has some really cool flight characteristics, especially when you pump them out there, you get them to push a little further. This is a really great disc in general. The Zone is fantastic. If you want to check it out, foundationdisc.com. We always have these in stock. It is something that is one of the discs that we make sure we always have because they're very popular and it's for a reason. So if you haven't checked out the Zone, I'm not sure how many of you are out there, make sure to check it out now. You can buy one on the site, link in the description, and let us know in the comments what disc you'd like us to review next, and we'll try to get to that. But yeah, other than that, we'll see you in the next one.